everyone, this is Vicky Raven from Well Kids, and I'm here today to present to you a talk that I did actually last week at Langley Park Girls' School called Being Me is Good Enough. And while I was doing that talk, I had a little think about it, and I did wonder whether it was indeed the right title for the presentation, and I wondered whether to call it Being Me is Perfect. But then I also thought that perhaps the message really I was trying to put across is that actually being me is the right thing. You don't have to be perfect, and I thought that word perfect has a lot of connotations. And part of what I wanted to talk about was this sort of idea of perfection, and actually you don't have to be perfect. So I'm sticking with being me is good enough. But I do also want you to know that I think everybody is perfect in their own way. So we'll just get started. Okay, so I asked the girls in the room who had considered their future. Were they excited about the future? Did they know what they wanted to do in the future? Did they have any idea what they wanted to do when they left school? Any idea? There's hundreds of career paths out there. Did they have any idea what they wanted to do? And some of them did. I had some of them. They said one girl said she wanted to be a DJ. One girl was going off to do criminal psychology. Somebody wanted to be a hairdresser, and then others of them. So we had a look at these. Some of them are traditional type careers. Were they inspired by any of them? Being an astronaut possibly is not a traditional career for a woman, but there are women astronauts, and there's absolutely no reason why girls today can't aspire to work for NASA. And then the more traditional careers. And then I asked them to raise their hands if they had no idea what they wanted to do. Absolutely no idea at all which kind of path they wanted to follow, and whether they were worried about that. And there was a sort of blank look, but one girl in the front row was definitely not worried about the future, and I asked her why that was. I found that interesting, and I thought the rest of the girls would find that interesting. And she said that she just hadn't decided what she wanted to do, and she was waiting for something to inspire her, and that she was sure that something would come along that would inspire her, and that she would know what it was when she came across it and when she saw it. And I really applauded her, because I think that's a great thing. That's a great attitude to have. And then I told them a little bit about my story, and I'm going to tell you that now. So I'm the founder of Well Kids, and I asked them whether they thought that I had planned to do this job. Well, I did have a plan, but it wasn't this plan. And the way I got to doing this was I had this dream when I was 10 years old, well, probably younger than that, but it sort of came to a head when I was about 10 years old. I wanted to be in the Nolans, and I had no clue that actually the Nolans were a family, and that to be in the Nolans you needed to be a Nolan, and that didn't bother me at all. And when I had an interview for a selective school when I was 10 years old, and the headmistress said to me, "Oh, Victoria, do you have an idea? Do you have any idea what you'd like to do when you leave school?" And I said, "Oh, I do actually. I'd really like to be in the Nolans." And of course, that's not something you learn about at school. I can't remember what her response was, but I can remember that my mum's response was, "Oh my God, what a thing to say." But that's still part of my dream. I still love performing, I still love singing, and I guess doing the job that I do is great, because I get to actually stand up in front of people and talk, which is a form of performance. So I really love that. So I guess, you know, my dream to be in the Nolans wasn't completely wide of the mark. And then when I was at secondary school, Diana Spencer came on the scene, and she looked to me to have the perfect life. And of course we know now that she wasn't very happy with her life, but she was a nanny, and I really loved the idea of that. You know, seeing a picture like this, I thought I'd love to do that. That's absolutely brilliant. I love being around little children. But by that stage, I had been given the label clever. And I was talking actually to one of my clients this morning, and she was saying that people's perception really is that it's the fortunate few that are labelled clever, and they're lucky to be clever and lucky to have the opportunity, and that the people that are labelled less clever, perhaps everyone's perception is that they have to struggle more for things. But you know, I was told that I was too clever to want to do a job like Diana Spencer. So, you know, being a nanny really wasn't ever an option. But again, you know, I did go on to work with reception and nursery age children for quite a while in my teaching job. And, you know, and I still work with children at Kester Natural Health Practice. And, you know, through having my own children, I've now learned a lot about working with older, you know, young people and teenagers. So actually having that in my dream also wasn't very wide of the mark. But at that time, you know, because I was one of the clever girls, I was put in the band of girls that did 12 O-levels and all academic subjects apart from art, which I actually went on to fail. Which I thought was quite hilarious at the time. You know, my mum also was a role model for me. She had done a maths degree, and she was a maths teacher and very successful at that. She went on to be a head of department and senior mistress in her school. So I had a very strong role model in my mum. Being a nanny just wasn't part of that. So I had this dream, and then I don't think it was called FutureWise at the time, but this is a fairly common system that children work through, and it analyses their strengths, their likes, their dislikes, and gives them suggestions for what kind of career they're most suited to. Okay, I'm just going to have a little sip of drink. So I filled in my FutureWise survey, and apparently my ideal career was in hair and beauty, which I thought at the time that was laughable because I was a clever girl. And by then I'd decided that I was going to do maths, chemistry and music at A-level, you know, so very seriously academic subjects. And I decided that actually what I really wanted to do was psychology at university. I'd developed an interest in serial killers and read a lot about them, and was really interested in the way people's minds worked. So again, you know, that idea that I wanted to talk to people and understand what makes them tick, again, that's part of my dream. And this sort of puzzle, I guess, was I was trying to fit it together. Hair and beauty really never fitted into that, but then that did become part of my life for a short while, and I'll tell you a little bit about that a bit later on. So, looking at a school, I asked the girls how many of them really like school, and very few of them put their hands up, which I think, you know, is a terrible, terrible shame, because, you know, that people still say your school years are the best years of your life, but I would really question how many kids really feel like that. You know, we might look back with a bit of nostalgia, but actually the school system is quite tough. And, you know, this picture is of a very little boy, and he's delighted because he's got an A+ or an A*. And that's great. I think that's fantastic. But what happens to all those kids that don't get A's and A stars, and kids that don't get to do the things that they're really, really good at? I mean, through my children, I've got to meet lots of their friends that are really good at performance, really good at music, really good at singing, really good at dancing, really good at presenting. And that's not something that they do. I mean, they do some of that at school, but it's not something that they take exams in. So it's very much sidelined. So for those kids, school doesn't really play to their strengths. And as parents, I think it's very difficult for us to keep encouraging them and to help them get through school. And you know, I have a very strong feeling that the school system, as Michael Gove seems to want it, is all about jumping through hoops and kids getting good qualifications. And you know, the consequences of not having good qualifications, well, you know, what are they? We're very much led to believe that, you know, I don't know how many children come out of school, they say unable to read, unable to do basic arithmetic. But I think that's always been the case. And, you know, and those people have got jobs and are earning a living. You know, there's plenty of people, I told the girls about Richard Branson, you know, wasn't a school lover. And he talks about being quite naughty at school, and, you know, the detentions that he got, and, you know, wheeler dealer kind of things that he did that weren't really, that they were frowned upon. And I think kids are not really taught in schools to be independent and to go out and, you know, try and get what they want. They are very spoon-fed through the education system, and then they don't really know how to go out there and create something for themselves. So parents often, this is the expression that I see, you know, what am I going to do? They've not done very well. They've, you know, not got good GCSE grades. They've been kicked out of school at the end of the lower six because their AS grades aren't good enough to carry on to A2, or they've not got the grades to go to university. And parents, you know, it's our job to be worried about our kids. But are our fears real? Is, if they don't get good grades, are they cast on the scrap heap? And, you know, the girls really laughed when they saw this picture, and even more so when I showed them this. You know, this is how kids feel when we're constantly nagging at them and telling them, really telling them that, you know, you won't be a success in your life if you don't get good school grades. You know, what does that say about everything else? You know, their entrepreneurial skills and their speaking skills and their, you know, creative skills. You know, are we saying that they're not valued because we can't give them a certificate to say they're good at them? So then I went back to talk to them about how school went for me. Well, I did go from being the clever girl, and I got, you know, really good O-level grades. Changed schools at sixth form level, which wasn't necessarily a very good thing for me, but it is for some teenagers. It's the best thing for them to do. But during the sixth form, I really went off academic learning, and I wasn't interested in it. I got a boyfriend, and I didn't get the grades to go to the university I wanted to do and do psychology. So I really quickly had a look round, and I applied to Avery Hill College because I was quite determined that I wasn't going to get a job. I did want to stay in education, but I wanted to do something perhaps a little bit different to traditional academic learning. So I went to Avery Hill College and I did a degree in primary school teaching, which was, you know, it was a very practical degree. There was lots of theory, which I loved, but then there was also the going out and teaching practice and actually working with kids, which I also loved. So I thought I was really sorted then. You know, I was going to come out of college, I was going to get a job in teaching, and I was going to inspire all these children. it was all mapped out for me. When I started teaching, it wasn't quite how I expected it to be, and I quickly learned that actually, you know, I couldn't be every child's saviour, and there were a lot of other factors that were influencing those kids and their parents that I could personally have no influence over, especially as a 22-year-old that didn't have children, wasn't married. You know, I just didn't have the experience. So, you know, there were lots of things that didn't go well for me in that job either. And I applied for jobs outside of teaching because I thought I'd be better off doing something different. I wasn't cut out for teaching. And then I got a different job in teaching in a very, very different school, and I grew to really love it. And then I had my own children, and I sort of decided at that point that I didn't really want to go back into the classroom full time. And I found almost the right job for me within teaching. At that point, Bromley Education Department had a family learning team, and actually that did go on all over the country at the time, and it was a great job for me because it meant I was travelling around different schools. I could decide how many sessions a week I wanted to do. I got to work with a small group of children in conjunction with an adult ed tutor working with the parents, and then I got to lead a joint parent and child session where I got to model things like how to talk to your children and involve lots of number work, how to play addition games, how to, you know, really engage your children with reading, and what to do when you're just walking down the road to engage them in learning. So that was a great job. Because I was doing that part-time, I also developed my love of complementary therapies and did some training in homeopathy, Tai Chi, instruction, massage, all of those kind of things. But unfortunately, when we had a change of government, that funding was gradually cut back and cut back. And eventually, our team of 8 was reduced to a team of 2. So I had to really decide what I was going to do. You know, there's points in all of our lives when we think, actually, I'm being forced into a situation, and this is an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity to make a change. Do I really have to go back into doing the same thing, or something that I'm not really that happy with, or am I able to take the opportunity and retrain, or just do a little bit of additional training to tweak what it is that I do? So about that time, I met some ladies that they'd had ME and had recovered, and they'd set up a company training complementary therapists to work on a very structured and very sequential system that enabled ME sufferers to become ME recoverers. And I was really, really taken by this system. They are called the Chrysalis Effect, and I did full training with them in ME recovery, and I started working with ME clients to recovery. And what I discovered was that lots of those people, when they unravel their story and they start thinking about it, they discover that lots of their problems or symptoms, if you like, actually started in their teenage years. And not that they were ill in their teenage years, but they knew something wasn't quite right from that time, and they were having to either suppress something or deny something about themselves, or struggle with something that they just couldn't deal with. And then over the next sort of 5 to 10 years, that became more and more of a problem, and depleted them, and it caused lots of physical symptoms, lots of stress type symptoms, and then they developed all the classic symptoms of ME. So because I was experienced, and I know that I love working with children and teenagers, and this program didn't really cater for teenagers. I decided that I would develop that myself. So that's what I've done over the last few years, and I still work with adults with ME, but I'm also really passionate about working with kids and teenagers on choosing the right path for them. And that doesn't mean that they just throw the towel in at school and say, well, to hell with it, I'm just not going to bother with my GCSEs, because, you know, that can be a stepping stone to other things. But I think for me, it's about helping them to see how other things fit into their life. You know, like the girl that says she wanted to be a DJ. Well, you know, she's not going to learn how to be a DJ at school, but she will learn about good presentation skills and good speaking skills, and she'll learn, you know, enough basic math skills to be, if she's going to be self-employed, to be able to do her own basic accounts. She might learn a little bit about marketing and business at school. So all of those skills will help her. You know, there was a girl there that said that she really wanted to be a lawyer. And then went on to say, but I don't think I'll ever get to do that because I'm not good enough at maths. And when we talked about what it was she actually wanted to do, I asked her what it was that she found interesting about being a lawyer, and we sort of unravelled that it wasn't actually the standing up in court and perhaps showboating and using some, you know, performance skills. What it was that she found interesting was unravelling somebody's story and somebody's case and being able to research that. So I suggested to her that perhaps being a lawyer or a solicitor wasn't what she wanted to do, but it was something within the area of the law, and that she might be able to actually go on and do that, and that she would probably have enough math skills to be able to do that. So I talked to them a little bit about, you know, doing what you love and being able to earn money, have a career, and being able to do something worthwhile and doing something that actually feeds your well-being and your soul. You know, I go to work, I've been to work this morning and seen a couple of clients, and, you know, it's great because I get to listen to people's stories, I get to inspire them, because, you know, I can sit outside of their story and suggest things to them that really light them up, and that's not like work for me. That's something that I do because I love it, and it's absolutely fantastic that I can do that as my career. You know, and I talk to them about having a dream. What's your dream? What do you love doing? But also that, you know, don't project yourself into the future so far that you don't bother with school at the moment. You know, school is an important part of their life. It's a major part of their life until they're at least 16, and maybe even, you know, another couple of years for a lot of them, or maybe even till they're 21, 22. You know, it's a big part of their life, and it's important to be mindful that qualifications are valuable, but also that there is another world out there that school doesn't teach you about. You know, my brother, you know, me and my brother are very, very different. You know, school suited me. It wasn't that difficult for me to do well at school, but for my brother it was very, very difficult. My brother is quite severely dyslexic, and school was a nightmare, frankly, for him, and he never did awfully well at school. But actually, he has, you know, my brother has the gift of the gab and could sell ice to Eskimos, and he's made a very, very successful career buying and selling property, buying property and renovating it and having tenants. You know, he's done very, very well at it. It's not something that I would be very good at, I don't think. You know, I could perhaps have a go at it and wing it, but I don't feel that it's a gift that comes naturally to me, but it is to him. And he sort of learnt about that by chance, really, because he was offered a job in an estate agent's and found that actually he was really good at it. So it's all about grabbing opportunities as they're offered to you. But you know, working hard at school is important. It teaches you a lot of things about yourself, but also looking at the future and being excited about the future. That, you know, there's lots of things out there that you don't get to learn about until you're not at school anymore, because you just don't come across these things. So I talk to them about always being optimistic, and talking to people, networking, and, you know, biting people's hands off when they offer you something. And then because it was a girls' school, I particularly wanted to talk to them about, you know, what it's like being a girl and being a woman. And I still feel that, you know, there's this sort of hidden message for girls. Girls, I do think girls have to work a bit harder and to prove themselves in a man's world, if that's what they choose to do. But actually, you know, there's this big movement now that, you know, you don't have to be a woman in a man's world. You don't have to be like a man as a woman. Women work better together. I actually belong to, I've just joined a group called Damsels in Success, and it's very, very, very much about women supporting other women's businesses, and not working in competition. And that's something that we do very well as women. So I'm just going to run this short film. It talks about all the things that women are absolutely brilliant at, and then there's a message at the end that is quite important, I think.